Good afternoon. My name is Josh Blank. I'm one of the co-founders of Open Sesame. Open Sesame offers the broadest, deepest, freshest set of e-learning courses in the world, and we make it very simple to integrate directly with your learning management system. Today, we're going to hear from our friend Yogi Roth, Pac-12 football analyst, adventure-prenuer, and world traveler, who's going to talk to us about the importance of grit and intensity in our training. Yogi?
Thanks, Josh. Thank you for all coming. I really appreciate the attention and the time, and I am absolutely stoked to be here. Today we get to talk about one of my favorite words of all time, and it's grit. And sometimes you hear the word grit and you think you got to get really loud and turn it really high, right? Sometimes you hear the word grit and you think that maybe it's the things that you can't see. It's that work that nobody really understands is happening, but it's happening behind the scenes. That's kind of where I fall. So today we're going to talk about grit. So I'd like you to participate in this, whether you're at your desk, whether you're on your phone, wherever you're watching this. This is going to be an interactive exercise, because it has to be if we want to get something out of it. So grit to you. Can you see it? Can you really see it? Yeah, that's grit. That's grit. That's grit. He's got grit. She's got grit. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Is it something tangible? Can you put your hands on it? Can you rub it? And of course, can you train it? Can you train grit? I think yes. I think everything on this given earth can be trained. Like Josh said, my name is Yogi Roth, and I consider myself a storyteller. I've traveled all over the world for the last decade or so, exploring story, exploring potential. But it started for me when I was a young kid. I was always an author. I was always trying to write books, and I can never forget my first book. I gave it to my mom. I was 5 years old. I said, "Here, Mom, here's my book." And on the back, it said about the author. You get to write that. It said, "Yogi lives in Hawaii with his 2 sons and his dog, Max." My mom looked at it and she said, "No, this is really nice. But what happened to your wife? How come you're not married?" But from that point on, she said, "Yogi, you're a storyteller. You're an author, you're a writer." And I always thought that I had what it took to be a writer. But what was unique is that none of my friends were writers. They were all athletes, and that's what we did, and I was never very talented. So the way that I talked about it, the way that I went through that process, was by writing. And what you can see are all my journals in my apartment. I've kept these since I was in college, playing at the University of Pittsburgh. Because for me, that journal was that compadre. It was that friend that I could talk about the things that I did when no one else was watching. I worked out a little extra today. Maybe I wrote a story today. Maybe I was feeling this emotion today. But it was where I got to truly be in touch with my inner sense of grit. So what is grit? Right? We talk about it all the time. We all have our own definition of it. I'd like you to take this moment and write what you think it is. If you were to define it, what is grit? Write down the very first thing you think of. Oftentimes when we're asked questions, we ponder, we think, what's the politically correct way to answer this? What should I truly say? Well, I'm asking you to really write down the first thoughts that come to mind for the rest of this presentation. For me, grit is pretty simple. Grit is defined as doing the lonely work. Okay, what is the lonely work? The lonely work is doing the boring things longer than somebody else. If you're a football player, it's watching film longer. If you're Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Russell Wilson. If you're in the business world, it's truly studying your opponent, studying yourself, and studying your craft so you can present yourself in the best possible light. It's reading that article that you definitely don't want to read, but you know it's going to enhance your ability to perform. It's doing the lonely work. Well, this is a picture of me when I was 7 years old. 7 years old, I wasn't the greatest athlete. I'd go to all these basketball camps. That's a guy named Mike Hopkins. He played for the Celtics. And I can remember, he sat down, got on his knee, and he starts talking to me. He says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'm going to go play in the NBA, man. I'm going to go play in the NBA." And he said, "You know what? Go do it." Now, all of my friends, all of my peers, in this tiny little town I grew up in, Dalton, Pennsylvania, in the middle of nowhere, 2,500 people, no stoplights, just a ball, just a court, just sports. They were all really good. I really wasn't. But I made a decision after that camp. I said, "I'm going to be good. I'm going to go to work." And I remember it'd be dark, there'd be snow, I'd shovel, I'd clean out the basketball court, and I would just play and play and play and play. And of course, at the time, I didn't know what lonely work was. I didn't know what grit was. All I knew is that I wanted to be as good as the guys I was playing with on the playground every day. But as I got older, I really began to understand that what I was doing at a young age was developing an inner sense of grit. So I want you to think back of, was there a moment for you where you were challenged, where you had to develop a sense of grit? Your style, your approach, your way, maybe a story. If you want, you can hit pause, share it with somebody, text it with somebody, tell your buddy about it, whatever it is. But go back to it. Because I truly believe that if we truly want to develop an inner sense of grit, we got to dive back into who we are. Because this is what happens. We've got two people that pretty much sit on our shoulders. We got self one and we got self two, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. They're talking to us every day. You know, happened to me today. Is that the right tie? I don't really know. Yeah, it's a cool tie. You should totally rock it, right? Whether it's silly or whether it's serious, we deal with self one and self two all the time. Now, my background is high-performance psychology. I spent the last 10 or so years studying it. When you dive into the depths of high-performance psychology, a lot of it talks about self one versus self two and how we talk to ourselves. Now, when you look at self one, it's kind of the ego. It's the teller. It's saying, oh, yeah, you're sweet. You're good. Yeah, it's a nice job. Or you're not. Man, you can't play. You don't have the skills. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. Self two is the natural ability. It's the doer in you. It's the one that understands how to focus, how it understands how to quiet the noise. So as you develop this inner sense of grit, as you're pondering if you even truly have it, well, self one is talking, yeah, I got it, I'm sweet. And self two is saying, whoa, bro, no, you don't. Or, yeah, you do. You put the work in, you put the time in. So I challenge all of us to really start to hear those voices. And when we hear self one kind of chirping, as it always does, you learn how to control it and quiet it. And there's a guy you should Google after this. His name's Timothy Galloway. And Timothy Galloway is a man who's wrote multiple books. One is called The Inner Game of Tennis. Inner Game of Tennis was one of the most influential books that I've ever read. Inner Game of Tennis is about the mind around the sport of tennis. Now here's this guy, Timothy Galloway. Timothy Galloway, one of the top tennis coaches in all of Southern California, all of the country, doing a nice job. You go to him if you want to get sweet, if you want to sharpen your skills, sharpen your game. And one day he sat there and he said, you know what, I'm not doing a great job coaching my athletes. For whatever reason, they're not performing up to the level that I hope they perform at. Maybe it's me. And he looked at himself in the mirror and said, man, maybe the way that I'm coaching, the way that I'm training isn't actually allowing these athletes to maximize their potential. He says, you know what, today I'm going to go out there and I'm not going to say anything and I'm just going to see what happens. You know what happened? His athletes started playing well. They started to quiet their mind. They didn't start thinking about, oh, when I hit a forehand, I got to make sure that my wrist is this way. When I want to serve it, I got to make sure that I'm like this. He just let them play. And he started to develop this theory around the inner game, how self one and self two are constantly in a dialogue. So he took an example. You can check it out on YouTube. It's amazing. And he took this woman who's in her mid-50s, who never played tennis, rocking a muumuu, right? Those were cool back in the day. And all of a sudden he says, you know what? I'm going to teach you how to play tennis. And 2020 did this back in the, I think it was the early 70s. And it's a great video. And he brings her out there and he says, all I want you to do is think of one thing. Bounce, hit. Bounce, hit. Bounce, hit. She didn't know how to serve. She didn't know how to volley. She didn't know how to hit a backhand. She knew nothing of tennis. And when you watch this video, all of a sudden, that self one isn't even existing. Self two, the doer in her, is just reacting. Bounce, hit, bounce, hit, bounce, hit. And she's developing a sense of grit, except her grit is really quiet. It's really quiet. It's completely in control. Not that easy to do. I struggle with it as an athlete. My story as an athlete is I walked down to the University of Pittsburgh because I thought that I could play major college football. I knew that I was going to play major college football, regardless of the fact that no one, including my closest supporters, told me that I couldn't. Played in my second game, second year I start, get put on a scholarship, and I find myself junior year on a Thursday night playing at the University of Miami. Now here we are in Miami. I know you can't be here, and it's pretty sweet, but it brings back some memories for me now. It was the Orange Bowl. And if you know college football back in the day, the Orange Bowl would just absolutely rock. So we're there. Orange Bowl's cranked up. Miami's won 30-some straight games, #1 team in the nation, and I'm kind of just a punk receiver. Shouldn't even be on the field, right, according to everybody else. And we're playing, and I'm making catch after catch, going up against all these All-Americans, and I'm feeling great. And all of a sudden, we get down to the last drive of the game, and I look to my quarterback, and I say, you're throwing me the ball. He goes, I know. The reason he said, I know, was because every Sunday for the previous 3 years, he and I worked out when everyone else was sleeping. He and I worked out, and the last 12 catches that I made every single day were the game winners. So here we find ourselves in the last minute of the ball game, driving down. I make a grab, set us up. We get a first down, we get another first down. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves on 4th and 8, inside the 20. I line up to the right. Inside of me is a guy you might know named Larry Fitzgerald. He's an All-Pro and a Hall of Fame lock. Larry's in the slot. And I'm going to run a post route. And all of a sudden, I know that I'm going to Duke Sean Taylor. He's their All-American, Mr. Everything safety. I give him a little shoulder shimmy, go over the top. and I'm open. Meanwhile, at the first down marker is my college roommate and obvious All-American Larry Fitzgerald, sitting there wide open. Well, our quarterback threw me the rock, and this is the play right here. And he throws it to me, and it's about 6 inches over my hands. Didn't make the play. We lose the game. Front page of the Miami Herald, and my world is crushed. My world is crushed, and never louder in my entire life was self-2 prior to the snap. Prior to the snap, my mind was quiet. Prior to the snap, I was focused. But when the play didn't happen, all of a sudden, I started to hear the ego. All of a sudden, I started to hear the negativity. All of a sudden, I didn't know how to put myself in check, and I was lost. Sometimes you may have that if you lose a deal, or you don't get the job that you want. You don't find the success that you think that you earned in your mind. Because in my eyes, it didn't make any sense. I put all the work in, man. All the lonely work that you could possibly imagine. Did all the work when nobody else was looking, and we still didn't make the play. So I'm lost, confused, maybe like some of you are at times. Didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go. And then my career ends. And as athletes, when careers end, it's a shock. You don't know what to do. You've only done that your entire life. You don't really know where to turn or where to go to next. I see that all the time in the business world. You associate yourself with your firm, with your partners, with your job, with your title, with your business card. Truly, all that is your ego. We don't know how to quiet that down. If we truly want to achieve grit, which leads to success, well, we're going to shut that voice down. So what did I do? I started to develop my path. And I challenge you to do the exercise that I was asked to do when my career was over. I was asked to write down 50 things that I want to do in my life. 50 things. At the time, it was crazy. 50 things, really? I'm lucky I can think of 3. I wanted to work out, I wanted to go out, and I wanted to stay out, right? What are 50 things you want to do? Because when I got going, all of a sudden, my list went from 3 to 10 to 20 to 40 to 70, and my list is continually going. And I still have my original list. And it was everything from meet Jerry Rice, live in Australia, whatever it may have been was on my list, from silly to serious. So hit pause and write your list. Now, when you look at that list, there's going to be themes to that list. There's going to be themes that jump out. Travel, adventure, whatever it is, then you need to glean onto that, because that is where you will truly be able to develop your inner sense of grit. Mine was football. And of course, my playing career ended, I was going to go coach. I went to coach at the University of Southern California, and away we went, coaching at USC, one of the greatest times of my life, 4 straight years. We were balling 4 Pac-10 titles, got to learn under Pete Carroll, and away we went. And I remember, at that time, the amount of work that my job description entailed. It'd be Thursday night, the coaches would go home, and I'd sit there and I'd be checking our call sheet, all the little details, making sure every single thing matched up. So when we got on the field on Saturday, it was okay. Putting in all this crazy amount of lonely work. Doing all the little things when no one else was watching. But the problem was that when I was working there, maybe like some of you, I felt pretty good. The problem was that I associated myself with elements of the ego side of the job, which is normal and it's natural and it's fun, but it never truly allowed me in that era to really dive into things that could potentially allow me to flourish. We all do that. It's called natural, and it's okay. The challenge is you got to check it. Because if we start to define ourselves by things outside of our control, like our jobs, how cool they are, how cool other people think they may be, right? I'm sure you hear that all the time. Then I think we start to lose our grip on grit. We lose our grip on the things that got us where we wanted to go. So my coaching career ends. I don't know what to do, don't know where to go, try to figure out my life, don't have a lot of cash. What's the next step? Because I knew in my heart that while all my friends thought that coaching in the National Football League or coaching in college football was the next natural step, I didn't think it was right. I didn't feel it, man. So I walked away. And walking away was not the easiest things, because I heard from so many people, especially alpha males, right? Think about all the boys that you have out there that are football fans. Man, I'd do anything if I could go coach in the NFL. I'd do anything if I could go coach in college. Well, for me, it wasn't where my heart was. So I had to go on the journey, find out where it was. So I went back to my list of 50. What do I want to do? Well, I wanted to see the world. So away I went. I went to Rio de Janeiro. I'll never forget. I spent about 40 days in South America. I found myself in Brazil. It's Carnival, which, by the way, is absolutely amazing. But I find my way up into this favela called Hacinia. And I walk all the way up. And if you know anything about favelas, there's really one way in and one way out. They're not really ruled by the police. They're really ruled by the drug lords in the community. So you roll in. Everyone's putting all these fears in my eyes. Yogi, you shouldn't go. It's a bad move. And I said, no, and I'm going to go check this place out. I liked the adventure. I was kind of a thrill seeker, and away we went. And I walk up these narrow streets in Hacinia in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, overlooking the amazing beach. And I take a turn. I see this little kid kicking a soccer ball. I make this turn around the corner, and I just stop for a minute. And I couldn't help it, but I had this flashback, right? I had this flashback to me being a little kid. Flashback of shooting basket after basket, catching ball after ball, throwing the baseball against the garage, just trying to improve my reflexes. And I thought, yeah, that's the grit that's really going to allow me to tap into my potential. And I had to get out of my comfort zone. When I made my transition into the media, I was challenged by one of my mentors, you need to go find your voice. Yeah, what's my voice? I knew as an athlete what my voice was because I put on all that time. But as an on-air personality, I had no clue what my voice was. In my eyes, I was going to go be Trent Dilfer. I was going to go be Kirk Herbstreit. I sat back and said, well, that's probably not the best move of all time. Maybe I should try to be the best Yogi Roth. How am I going to do it? I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to go find that grit. I'm going to go back into that lonely work vault, do the boring things longer. And I started to write out, what's my style going to be? Youthful, energetic, honest, everything based on fact first, opinion second. Cool. What's my theme going to be? Adventurous, competitive. What's the vision I'm going to have? Try to be the best in the world. What's overarching my philosophy going to be when I make this next transition in my life? It's going to live life, be curious, and compete at an uncommon level while at peace. And I could rattle off my style, vision, theme, and philosophy just like that because I put the work in. So I challenge you in your craft, where you are in your life, where you are in your list of 50. Can you truly respond to those answers with great efficiency, and more importantly, great honesty? The only way to really get honest, in my eyes, is to get uncomfortable. One of my best friends in the world is a guy by the name of Dr. Michael Gervais. Some of you may have been familiar with Felix Baumgartner. He's a guy who jumped through the stratosphere with Red Bull and their Stratos project. Well, Mike was his mental coach. Mike also worked with the Seattle Seahawks, multiple Olympic gold medalists, multiple professional teams, multiple corporations around mindset. When you look at your field and your job, it's a lot about mindset. You know, it's easy to walk into the office and say, all right, here's my presentation, away we go, and just put it up on the board and see what comes out. But it's much harder if you make yourself a little uncomfortable and prepare for it, put in the lonely work. And I truly believe in this quote that we all want to grow. We all want to achieve amazingness. But the only way we can do it is if we're willing to really get uncomfortable. And I think at the edge of uncomfortable is where greatness truly happens. See, I'm a big fan of leaning over the edge. Big fan of taking a run at it. Can you imagine? This Christ the Redeemer. That's the edge. We get to create that edge every single day in whatever we do. We get to create our environment to one that enables us to get gritty. Enables us to say, yeah, I got grit. I'm going to say it really quietly. I'm going to say it to myself because I know that I put the lonely work in. It's one of my favorite images of all time. How do you want to be? To me, that's the ultimate self-one versus self-two. That's the ultimate ego versus a doer, a natural ability, diving in and going to work. You know, Bill Bradley has a quote, when you're not working, someone somewhere is, and the two of you meet given fairly equal ability, he will win. And I've had that quote for whatever reason memorized my entire life. And I truly believe that if you want to get ahead in the world, you've got to dive in and do the lonely work. But to do it, you've got to verbalize with your team. With your team, with your group, with your organization, and let them know what your goals are, what the aspiration is, what the aspirations are, and how you're going to get there. Because they become your guided missile. The people in your group that either you're overseeing or that you report to, you're trying to create something special. Same thing I'm doing at the TV networks I'm at, or a documentary I'm doing, or there's a team that I was playing on. We are one another's guided missiles. Sports is the greatest analogy. If we're going to run sprints and I run through the line and you don't, I can call you out, and vice versa. And so could the rest of our teammates. Well, I believe the same thing should be able to happen in the business world. We need to share our ideas, share our aspirations, share the way we want to go get them, so we can have one another guiding us along the way. Because we need guided missiles if we want to have grit. I think we all would agree. We love grit. We watch the TED Talks on grit. We read the articles on grit. Every analyst in television says the word grit. But I challenge us if we really have a depth about what true grit really, truly is. I asked you earlier if you could see it. I think you can see passion. I think passion is one of the most obvious things on the planet. I think you can feel it. I think you can see it. I think it's there. So ask yourself, yeah, you think you got grit. Where's your passion? If somebody came off the streets and walked in, would they be able to feel it? Would they be able to see it? If they were hiding behind that tree watching me shoot jump shots, I hope they would say, yeah, I could see it. Can you feel it? Heck yeah, you can. You can feel it. When you're doing the lonely work, you can feel it. I'm preparing for this speech, I can feel it when it's late at night and I'm getting ready. Totally introspective. Yeah, you can feel it. Can you train it? Oh, you bet you can. You get to create your normal, or what I like to coin, your new normal. You get to create an environment every day that you're sitting and looking over the edge of the Christ the Redeemer. Are you willing to do it? Are you willing to get up really high? I think that's where the fun is. And then, of course, is grit real? Well, only you get to answer it. You're the one that looks yourself in the eye every day, every morning, every night. And you get to find out if you truly have grit. Because grit, we could pound our chest and say, yeah, we got it. We can crank it up really loud. Or I can just give you that look. Right? We can give you that smirk when you're in that boardroom about to give that presentation. Because you know you did the lonely work. And you're ready to roll. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Open Sesame, for having me. I think their product is not only one of the most unique ones in the world, but by far one that defines grit. And if you get to know Josh and the rest of his team, I think you'll totally understand and appreciate that. Thank you.